Chapter 1, Shadows of the Past. The scent of blood hit Raven like a physical blow, stopping her dead in her tracks on the gravel path leading to the main lodge. Her fangs descended before she could stop them, sharp and deadly, and she pressed her lips together hard enough to taste copper. Asterisk not here. Not now, asterisk. Raven? Sierra's voice came from beside her, worried. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. If only it were that simple. Raven forced her fangs to retract, a skill she'd mastered over 23 years of hiding what she truly was. Just tired from the flight, she managed, shouldering her duffel bag higher. This place is intense. The Pine Ridge Werewolf training camp spread before them like something out of a wilderness fantasy, all rustic log buildings and towering evergreens. But underneath the postcard-perfect exterior, Raven could sense the raw power thrumming through the air. Every wolf here was strong, dominant, proud. And every single one of them would want her dead if they knew what she really was. Half vampire. Half werewolf. All secret. Welcome to Pine Ridge. A booming voice made them both turn. A man strode toward them, and Raven's wolf immediately recognized the alpha energy rolling off him in waves. Tall, broad-shouldered, with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. I'm Marcus Blackwood, camp director. You must be the Sterling sisters. When he extended his hand, Raven shook it firmly, meeting his gaze without flinching. Alphas respected strength, and she'd learned early that showing fear was like painting a target on your back. Raven Sterling, she said. This is my sister Sierra. Marcus's handshake lingered a moment too long, his nostrils flaring slightly. His eyes narrowed, studying her face with an intensity that made her skin crawl. Interesting, he murmured. Very interesting indeed. Sierra stepped forward, her usual sunny smile in place. We're so excited to be here. Our pack leader back in New Zealand spoke so highly of the program. Ah yes, the Moonrise Pack. I knew your mother, Catherine. Marcus's expression softened slightly. Tragic loss. She was a remarkable woman. Raven's chest tightened. Their mother had died in a car accident when Raven was 15, Sierra just 13. Or at least, that's what they'd been told. Lately, she'd begun to wonder if there was more to the story. She would have loved this place, Sierra said wistfully. Indeed. Marcus's gaze shifted back to Raven. Something tells me you'll find your time here illuminating. Both of you. The way he said it sent a chill down Raven's spine. She forced herself to smile. We're looking forward to it. Elena will show you to your cabin. Marcus gestured to a woman approaching from the lodge. Dinner is at 7, followed by orientation. The real work begins tomorrow. Elena was perhaps 30, with auburn hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and the kind of athletic build that screamed serious training. But when she smiled, Raven noticed something odd. Her canines were perfectly normal, not the slightly elongated teeth most werewolves developed, even in human form. Hey there, Elena said warmly. Ready for the grand tour? As they walked toward the cabins, Elena chattered about the camp's history, the training programs, the incredible transformation rates they'd seen over the years. But Raven found herself only half listening. Every few steps, she caught another whiff of blood from the training areas, and her vampire side stirred hungrily. Their cabin was small but comfortable, with 2 sets of bunk beds and a tiny bathroom. The moment Elena left them alone, Sierra flopped onto the bottom bunk with a groan. 6 months, she said to the ceiling. 6 months of alpha posturing and dominance games. Remind me again why we signed up for this? Because you need to learn control, Raven said, unpacking her clothes. And because Mom always said we should honor our heritage. Easy for you to say. You've never had trouble with control. If only she knew. Raven's control was a daily battle, a constant war between 2 natures that should never have existed in the same body. Her mother had been a powerful werewolf alpha. Her father, well, Her father had been a vampire lord who'd seduced Catherine Sterling one moonless night and left her pregnant with twins. The vampire genes had only manifested in Raven. Sierra was pure wolf, if a somewhat undisciplined one. She'd never know the struggle of craving blood while your wolf howled for raw meat, or the way vampire speed felt like lightning trapped in flesh. "You're doing it again," Sierra said, propping herself up on her elbows. "That look you get when you're thinking about Mom. Just missing her." Raven closed her suitcase with more force than necessary. "Come on, let's go to dinner. I want to scope out the competition." The dining hall buzzed with energy as wolves from around the world gathered for the evening meal. Raven and Sierra found seats at a table near the back, where Raven could watch the room without being too obvious about it. "Oh wow," Sierra breathed, her gaze fixed on something across the room. "Who is that?" Raven followed her sister's line of sight and felt her breath catch. A woman sat alone at a corner table, dark hair falling in waves around her shoulders, skin kissed by the sun. She was beautiful in a wild, untamed way that made Raven's wolf sit up and take notice. "Jade Martinez," said a voice behind them. They turned to find a young man sliding into the seat across from them. "I'm Tyler, by the way. Wyoming Pack. And that's Jade. She's complicated." "Complicated how?" Sierra asked. Tyler's expression grew serious. "Let's just say she doesn't trust alphas." "Any alphas?" "Word is she had a bad experience with her last pack." Raven's wolf growled low in her chest. The protective instinct was so strong it surprised her. She didn't even know this woman, but the thought of someone hurting her made violent images flash through her mind. "She's staring at you," Sierra whispered. Raven looked up to find Jade's eyes fixed on her, dark and intense. For a moment, the rest of the dining hall faded away. There was something magnetic about her gaze, something that called to every instinct Raven possessed. Then Jade looked away, and the spell was broken. "Attention, everyone." Marcus's voice boomed across the hall. "Welcome to Pine Ridge. For the next 6 months, you'll be pushed to your limits and beyond. You'll discover strength you never knew you had. And some of you," his gaze swept the room, lingering on Raven, "will discover things about yourselves that will change everything." After dinner came orientation, held in a large meeting room decorated with pack symbols from around the world. Marcus stood at the front, his presence commanding absolute attention. "The first rule of Pine Ridge," he began, "is honesty. We cannot help you reach your potential if you lie to us, or to yourselves. The second rule is respect. You will respect your trainers, your fellow campers, and the traditions that have guided our kind for millennia." He paused, his gaze finding Raven again. "The third rule is the most important: no secrets. In 6 months, you'll know each other better than family. Secrets have a way of surfacing here, and when they do, they tend to be explosive." Raven's blood turned to ice. Did he know? Was this some kind of test? "Tomorrow, we begin with basic assessments," Marcus continued. "Physical fitness, agility, strength. We need to know where you are before we can take you where you need to go." As the meeting broke up, Raven found herself walking back to the cabin in a daze. Sierra was chattering about the other campers, but Raven barely heard her. All she could think about was Marcus's words and the way he'd looked at her. No secrets. Back in their cabin, Sierra was asleep within minutes, exhausted from travel and excitement. But Raven lay awake, staring at the ceiling as moonlight filtered through the windows. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to grab Sierra and get as far from this place as possible. But she couldn't. Sierra needed this training, needed to learn control before her wolf took over completely. And Raven. Raven needed answers. About her mother's death, about why Marcus seemed to know more than he was saying, about the strange pull she felt toward Jade Martinez. Just as she was finally drifting off to sleep, Sierra's voice cut through the darkness. "Raven? Are you awake?" "Yeah. I had that dream again. About Mom." Sierra's voice was small, frightened. But this time it was different. This time I saw her face before the accident. She wasn't surprised, Raven. She was scared. Like she knew what was coming. Raven sat up, her heart pounding. What exactly did you see? She was in her car, but she kept looking in the rearview mirror. And there was someone following her. Someone with red eyes. The words hit Raven like a physical blow. Red eyes. Vampire eyes. It's just a dream, she said, but her voice sounded hollow even to her own ears. No, Sierra whispered. It's not. I think someone killed her, Raven. I think Mom was murdered. Dawn was still hours away, but Raven knew she wouldn't sleep again. She lay in the darkness, Sierra's words echoing in her mind, and tried to ignore the growing certainty that coming to Pine Ridge hadn't been a coincidence. Someone wanted them here. Someone who knew exactly what they were. The next morning brought their first round of assessments. Raven dressed carefully, choosing clothes that would allow for movement but wouldn't tear if she accidentally shifted. The other campers were already gathering at the training grounds when she and Sierra arrived. All right, everyone. Elena called out, clipboard in hand. We're starting with basic agility. Simple obstacle course, nothing too challenging. I just want to see how you move. The course was set up in a large clearing, with logs to jump over, ropes to climb, and various barriers to navigate. One by one, the campers took their turns, and Raven watched carefully, noting speeds and techniques. When her turn came, she approached the starting line with forced calm. The course looked easy enough, too easy, really. Her vampire speed would make it effortless, but she needed to hold back, to appear merely competent. Go! Elena shouted. Raven started at what she judged to be a normal pace, but as she moved through the course, the vampire in her began to take over. The obstacles blurred past, her body moving with inhuman grace and speed. She realized her mistake too late. She was going too fast. In desperation, she threw herself sideways, pretending to stumble over a log. She hit the ground hard, rolling to absorb the impact, and came up with dirt on her clothes and a sheepish expression. Whoa there, speed racer, Tyler called out, grinning. Save some energy for the rest of us. But as Raven dusted herself off, she caught sight of Jade Martinez watching from the sidelines. The other woman's expression was thoughtful, her dark eyes narrowed with suspicion. She'd noticed. Somehow, Jade had seen through the deception. Their eyes met across the training ground, and Raven felt that strange pull again, stronger this time. It was like recognition, like coming home after a long journey. Then Jade turned away, and Raven was left standing in the morning sun, wondering what the hell she'd gotten herself into. That evening, as the camp gathered for their first full moon assembly, Raven found herself scanning the crowd for familiar faces. The assembly was held in an amphitheater carved into the hillside, with torches providing flickering light as the moon rose overhead. Marcus stood at the center, his voice carrying easily across the space. Tonight, we honor the moon that guides us, the pack that sustains us, and the bonds that make us strong. Tonight, we run as one. The energy in the crowd was building, wolves beginning to stir as the moon climbed higher. Raven felt her own wolf responding, but underneath it, her vampire side recoiled from the sacred ritual. She was scanning the crowd, trying to find Sierra, when her gaze fell on Elena. The woman was standing at the edge of the amphitheater, but she wasn't looking at Marcus or the moon. She was looking at Raven. And in the torchlight, her eyes glowed with an otherworldly light that had nothing to do with werewolf magic. Elena wasn't a werewolf at all. As if sensing Raven's realization, Elena smiled and raised one hand in a subtle gesture. The air around her shimmered, and for just a moment, Raven saw her true form, tall, ethereal, with power radiating from her like heat from a forge. A witch. Elena was a witch, and she was here watching hybrids. Watching Raven. The full moon reached its peak, and around them, the wolves began to howl. But all Raven could hear was the sound of her own heartbeat, thundering in her ears as she realized the truth. This wasn't a training camp at all. It was a trap. If you're excited about today's content, make sure to hit that like button, and suppose you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, you won't be able to know when our next audiobook will be released, therefore hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Chapter 2, The Scent of Destiny. The howling stopped abruptly, leaving an eerie silence that made Raven's skin crawl. Around the amphitheater, wolves began to shift, bones cracking and reforming as they answered the moon's call. But Raven remained frozen. Elena's knowing smile burned into her memory. First full moon run is always magical, Sierra whispered beside her, already beginning to shimmer with the telltale signs of an approaching shift. I can't wait to. Don't. Raven grabbed her sister's arm, hard enough to bruise. Something's wrong. Sierra's eyes widened. What do you mean? Before Raven could answer, Marcus's voice boomed across the amphitheater. Wolves of Pine Ridge. Tonight we run as our ancestors did, wild and free. Follow the ancient paths, hunt as one pack, and remember, the moon sees all. His gaze found Raven in the crowd, and she felt the weight of his stare like a physical touch. The weak will fall behind. The strong will lead. And the truly powerful. He paused, his lips curving in a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The truly powerful will reveal themselves. The assembled wolves began to move toward the tree line, their excitement palpable. Raven felt her own wolf stirring, eager to run, but her vampire side recoiled from the idea of joining the pack hunt. The contradiction was tearing her apart from the inside. Come on, Sierra tugged at her arm. We need to shift. Raven nodded reluctantly and followed her sister toward a cluster of trees where the female wolves were gathering. But as they walked, a scent hit her that made her stumble. Wild honey. Desert sage. And underneath it all, something uniquely, intoxicatingly female. Her wolf exploded to life, every instinct screaming one word, mate. Raven's head snapped up, her eyes scanning the crowd frantically. The scent was stronger now, pulling at something deep in her chest. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she turned in a slow circle, following the trail. There. Jade Martinez stood at the edge of the clearing, already half-shifted, her human form flickering between flesh and fur. Even in the moonlight, Raven could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she held herself apart from the other wolves. The scent hit her again, and this time Raven couldn't suppress the low growl that rumbled in her chest. Every cell in her body was screaming at her to go to Jade, to claim her, to mark her as hers. Asterisk mate. Mine. Protect, asterisk. Raven? Sierra's voice seemed to come from very far away. You look like you're about to be sick. Raven couldn't answer. She was drowning in sensation, in the overwhelming need to get closer to Jade. This couldn't be happening. She'd never felt attracted to women before, never even looked twice at another female. But now, standing here with Jade's scent filling her lungs, she felt like she was dying of thirst and Jade was the only water in the world. Around them, the other wolves were completing their shifts, magnificent creatures of silver and gold and midnight black. Raven forced herself to focus, to begin her own transformation. But as her bones began to crack and reform, she made a critical error. She looked at Jade again. The other woman had finished shifting, her wolf form sleek and powerful, coat the color of burnished copper. She was beautiful, perfect, and when she turned those dark eyes toward Raven, the mate bond snapped into place like a physical blow. Raven's shift went wrong. Instead of the smooth transition she'd mastered over the years, her vampire nature surged forward, fighting her wolf for dominance. Her fangs extended fully, her eyes blazed red, and for a terrifying moment, she felt her control slip entirely. She threw herself behind a tree, pressing her back against the rough bark as she fought to regain control. Her breathing was ragged, her hands shaking as she forced her fangs to retract, her eyes to return to their normal color. Get it together, she told herself fiercely. You're going to get everyone killed. When she finally emerged from behind the tree, fully shifted into her wolf form, most of the pack had already disappeared into the forest. Sierra was waiting for her, concern radiating from her smaller gray form. Are you okay? her sister asked through their pack link. Fine, Raven lied. Just nervous about the first run. But she wasn't fine. Not even close. As they padded into the forest with the rest of the pack, Raven found herself constantly searching for Jade's scent, her wolf desperate to track down their mate. The need was so strong it was physically painful, like a hook in her chest pulling her forward. The pack spread out through the forest, following ancient deer trails and game paths. Raven tried to stay with Sierra, but the mate bond was relentless, tugging her away from her sister and toward the copper-colored wolf somewhere ahead. She found Jade drinking from a stream about a mile from the camp, alone and wary. The moment Raven appeared between the trees, Jade's head snapped up, her body going rigid with alarm. For a moment, they stared at each other across the moonlit clearing. Raven's wolf was practically vibrating with the need to approach, to nuzzle and scent mark and claim. But something in Jade's posture, the way she was coiled to run, made Raven hold back. Jade shifted first, her human form appearing in a shimmer of moonlight. She was naked, as was natural after shifting, but she crossed her arms over her chest in a gesture that was more protective than modest. "Stay back," she said, her voice rough with fear. "I know what you are." Raven shifted as well, confusion warring with desire. "What I am?" "Alpha." Jade spat the word like a curse. "I can smell it on you. The power, the dominance. You want to claim me, don't you? Add another trophy to your collection." "No." Raven took a step forward, then stopped when Jade flinched. "I don't understand what's happening. I've never felt anything like this before." Jade's laugh was bitter. "Right. Like you don't know about mate bonds. Like you haven't been planning this since you got here." "Mate bonds?" Raven's voice cracked. "That's what this is?" Something in her tone must have convinced Jade that her confusion was genuine, because the other woman's expression shifted slightly. "You really don't know?" "I know about mate bonds in theory, but I've never." Raven ran a hand through her hair. "I've never been attracted to women before. I don't understand what's happening to me." "Well, congratulations," Jade said coldly. "You've just discovered you're gay. Now leave me alone." She turned to go, but Raven's vampire side chose that moment to react to the rejection. A snarl tore from her throat and she moved faster than any werewolf should be able to, blocking Jade's path in a blur of motion. "You don't get to walk away," she heard herself saying, her voice deeper than usual. "Not when you're mine." Jade's eyes widened with terror. "I don't belong to anyone. Not anymore." The fear in her voice cut through Raven's possessive haze, and she stepped back, horrified by her own behavior. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean." "Yes, you did." Jade's whole body was trembling now. "You're just like him. Just like Marcus." The name hit Raven like a physical blow. "Marcus? What does he have to do with this?" Jade's laugh was broken, painful to hear. "Everything. He's the reason I'm here. The reason I can't." She wrapped her arms around herself tighter. "He's my uncle. My alpha. And when I was 17, barely of age, he decided I would be his mate." Raven's blood turned to ice. "He forced you?" "Forced marking," Jade whispered. "No consent, no choice. He held me down and bit me, claimed me as his. Said it was his right as alpha, that I should be honored." Her voice broke. "I tried to fight him, but he was too strong. And afterward, everyone acted like it was normal. Like I should be grateful." Rage exploded through Raven, so pure and violent it made her vision red. Her fangs descended fully, and she had to clench her fists to keep from shifting back to wolf form and hunting Marcus down. "I'll kill him," she snarled. "Get in line," Jade said bitterly. "But it won't change what he did. It won't change the fact that I'm marked, claimed, ruined." "You're not ruined." Raven's voice was fierce. "You're a survivor. And what he did, that wasn't a real mating. It was assault. Tell that to my wolf, Jade said. Tell that to the bond that's been eating me alive for 6 years. 6 years? Raven's heart broke for her. You've been bonded to him for 6 years? Until 3 months ago. Jade's voice was barely a whisper. I found a witch who helped me break it. Cost me everything I had, but I did it. I came here to get stronger, to make sure no alpha could ever claim me again. And now? Raven asked, though she dreaded the answer. Now I can feel a new bond trying to form, and I won't, go through that again. Jade's eyes were wild with panic. I'd rather die. It doesn't have to be like that, Raven said desperately. I would never hurt you. I would never force you into anything. That's what they all say. Jade started backing away. But in the end, alphas take what they want. It's what you do. I'm not like Marcus. Raven took a step forward, her wolf howling at the distance between them. I'm not like other alphas. Prove it, Jade challenged. Walk away. Let me go. The words hit Raven like a physical blow. Every instinct she possessed was screaming at her to follow, to claim, to mark. Her vampire side was particularly vicious, whispering that she could simply take what she wanted, that she was strong enough to make Jade submit. She was reaching for Jade before she realized what she was doing, her vampire speed making her movements inhumanly fast. Jade tried to dodge, but Raven caught her wrist, and the moment their skin touched, something extraordinary happened. Raven felt Jade's emotions slam into her like a tsunami. Terror, yes, but underneath it was a pain so deep and raw it made Raven gasp. She could feel Jade's memories, her trauma, the way Marcus had torn her apart from the inside. But she could also feel something else, a tiny spark of hope, buried so deep Jade probably didn't even know it existed. Hope that maybe, just maybe, this time could be different. Oh God, Raven whispered, stumbling backward. I can feel what you're feeling. I can see your memories. Jade stared at her in shock. That's impossible. Mind links only work between bonded mates, and we're not. Bonded, Raven finished. But I can feel everything. Your fear, your pain, your hope. She looked at her hands in wonder. How is this possible? I don't know. Jade's voice was shaky. But you need to stop. Whatever you're doing, stop it. I'm not doing anything. Raven protested. It's just happening. I can't control it. As if to prove her point, another wave of Jade's emotions hit her, this time, a complex mix of attraction and terror that made Raven's head spin. She could feel Jade's wolf recognizing her as mate, could feel the way her body responded despite her conscious mind's rejection. This is wrong, Jade said, but her voice lacked conviction. I can't trust these feelings. I can't trust you. You don't have to trust me, Raven said, though the words cost her. But don't run away because you're scared. Run away because you want to. I do want to, Jade said, but she wasn't moving. Your emotions are telling me something different. Raven took a careful step closer. I can feel your wolf, Jade. She wants me as much as mine wants you. My wolf is an idiot, Jade said, but there were tears in her eyes. She's the reason I got hurt before. She trusted Marcus, believed he would protect me. I'm not Marcus. Raven's voice was soft but sure. I would never hurt you. I would die before I let anyone hurt you. You don't even know me. I know enough. Raven reached out slowly, giving Jade plenty of time to pull away. When she didn't, Raven gently touched her cheek. I know you're strong and beautiful and brave. I know you survived something that would have destroyed most people. And I know that whatever this is between us, it's real. Jade closed her eyes, leaning into the touch despite herself. I can't do this. I can't be someone's mate again. Then don't be, Raven said simply. Be my partner. Be my equal. Be whatever you want to be. It doesn't work that way, Jade whispered. Mate bonds are about possession, about dominance. The alpha always controls the bond. Maybe with other alphas, Raven said. But I'm not like other alphas. I'm not even fully werewolf. Jade's eyes snapped open. What? Raven took a deep breath. She was about to reveal her most dangerous secret, but something about Jade made her want to be honest. I'm half vampire. My father was a vampire lord who seduced my mother. I've been hiding it my whole life. That's impossible, Jade breathed. Hybrids don't exist. I do. Raven's smile was sad. I exist, and I'm probably going to get us both killed. But I want you to know the truth about what you'd be bonding with. Jade stared at her for a long moment. A hybrid, she murmured. That explains the speed. And the emotional connection. Vampires can feed on emotions, can't they? Some can, Raven admitted. I've never done it intentionally before. I'm not even sure how it works. It's called soul feeding, Jade said quietly. I read about it once. It's supposed to be one of the rarest vampire abilities. You can literally feed on someone's emotions, their memories, their pain. That sounds horrifying. It can be. In the wrong hands, it can drive someone insane. Jade's expression was thoughtful. But in the right hands, it can heal trauma, ease pain, strengthen bonds. I don't know how to control it, Raven admitted. I don't know how to control any of this. Then we'll figure it out together, Jade said, then caught herself. I mean, if you want to. If you think you can handle being bonded to someone who's broken. You're not broken, Raven said fiercely. You're wounded, but wounds can heal. And if you'll let me, I'd like to help. Why? Jade's voice was barely a whisper. Why would you want someone like me? Because you're my mate, Raven said simply. Because my wolf knew you the moment she caught your scent. Because my vampire side has never wanted to protect anyone the way it wants to protect you. She paused. And because I'm falling in love with you, and I've never said that to anyone before. Jade's breath caught. You barely know me. I know enough, Raven repeated. And I'd like to know more, if you'll give me the chance. For a long moment, they stood in the moonlit clearing, the weight of possibility hanging between them. Then Jade stepped closer, close enough that Raven could feel her breath on her skin. If we do this, she said quietly, it has to be different. No claiming, no marking, no traditional mate bond. I can't handle that. Whatever you want, Raven said immediately. We'll make our own rules. And if I have a panic attack? If I can't handle being touched? Then we'll work through it together. Raven's voice was steady, sure. I'm not going anywhere. Jade searched her eyes for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay. But I'm warning you, I'm a mess. I don't know how to be someone's mate, and I don't know if I can learn. We'll figure it out, Raven said, echoing Jade's earlier words. Together. As if responding to some unspoken signal, they moved closer to each other. Raven could feel Jade's emotions again, fear, yes, but also hope and a growing warmth that made her own heart race. Can you turn it off? Jade asked. The soul feeding? I don't know, Raven admitted. I don't even know how I turned it on. Try, Jade said. I want to know that what I'm feeling is real, not influenced by your vampire abilities. Raven closed her eyes, concentrating on pulling back, on creating barriers between herself and Jade's emotions. It was harder than she'd expected, like trying to stop breathing, but gradually, the connection faded. Better? She asked. Jade nodded, then reached out tentatively to touch Raven's hand. I can still feel the mate bond, she said softly. But it's different. Gentler. Like you're asking instead of demanding. I am asking, Raven said. Will you give us a chance? Jade's answer was to step closer, until they were sharing the same breath. Yes, she whispered. But slowly. And on my terms. Any terms you want, Raven said, and meant it. They stood there in the moonlight, two damaged souls finding each other, while around them the forest whispered its ancient secrets and the moon looked down with approval. Neither of them noticed the figure watching from the shadows, or the way Marcus Blackwood's eyes glowed red with rage as he witnessed the beginning of their bond. The hunt was just beginning. If you're excited about today's content, make sure to hit that like button, and suppose you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, you won't be able to know when our next audiobook will be released, therefore hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Chapter 3, Crown of Thorns. Raven woke to the taste of copper in her mouth and the sound of her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. The cabin was dark, Sierra's steady breathing the only sound breaking the pre-dawn silence. But something was wrong, terribly wrong. Her skin felt like it was on fire, burning from the inside out. When she looked down at her hands, thin lines of silver light traced across her palms, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. The marks were beautiful and terrifying, like liquid starlight beneath her skin. "What the hell?" she whispered, sitting up carefully to avoid waking Sierra. The moment her feet touched the floor, the world tilted. The cabin walls seemed to dissolve, replaced by swirling mist and the distant sound of chanting. Raven tried to call out, but her voice caught in her throat as the mist thickened around her. Then she was falling, tumbling through darkness that tasted of ancient magic and old blood. When the world solidified around her again, she was standing in a vast throne room that belonged in a fairy tale. Soaring columns of black marble reached toward a ceiling painted with constellations that moved and shifted like living things. The air hummed with power so thick she could almost see it, and the temperature was perfect, not hot, not cold, but exactly right for both vampire and werewolf comfort. "Welcome, child of two worlds." Raven spun toward the voice and found herself face to face with the most beautiful woman she'd ever seen. Tall and elegant, with platinum hair that cascaded past her shoulders and eyes the color of fresh blood. She wore a gown that seemed to be made of shadows and starlight, and a crown of black diamonds rested on her brow. "I am Seraphina," the woman said, her voice like music played on crystal. "Empress of the Ember Kingdom, Queen of the Vampire Courts." She gestured to the figure beside her. "And this is my counterpart, Fenrir of the Wolf Clans." The man was equally impressive, tall and broad-shouldered, with silver hair and eyes like molten gold. His presence radiated the kind of primal power that made Raven's wolf want to either submit or challenge him. He wore simple clothes, but the authority in his bearing was unmistakable. "You brought me here," Raven said, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. "Through some kind of blood magic." "The summoning responds to hybrid blood," Seraphina confirmed. "It has been waiting for you for 5 centuries. 5 centuries? Raven's mind reeled. "That's impossible. I'm 23 years old." "Your soul is far older than your body," Fenrir said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to come from the earth itself. "You are the reincarnation of the first hybrid, the one foretold in the prophecy." "What prophecy?" Seraphina gestured, and the air shimmered. Ancient text appeared in the space between them, written in a language that hurt to look at directly. But somehow, Raven could read it. "From death comes life, from division comes unity. The child of two bloods shall rise again, born of star and shadow, blessed by moon and sun. In her hands lies the power to bridge the chasm between our kinds, to unite what was sundered, to heal what was broken." "That's me?" Raven's voice cracked. "I'm supposed to unite vampires and werewolves?" "You are the only one who can," Fenrir said. "The only one strong enough to bear the weight of both crowns." "Both crowns?" Raven looked between them, a cold certainty settling in her stomach. "You want me to rule both species?" "Want is irrelevant," Seraphina said coolly. "It is your destiny. Your purpose. The reason you were born." "I didn't ask for this." Raven backed away from them, her heart racing. "I don't want to rule anyone. I just want to live my life." "Your life?" Fenrir's laugh was bitter. "Child, you died 500 years ago. Everything since then has been borrowed time, a chance to fulfill what you could not accomplish in your first life." "My first life?" The words felt like ice in her veins. What happened in my first life? The two monarchs exchanged a look that made Raven's blood run cold. Show her, Seraphina said quietly. The throne room dissolved around them, replaced by images that moved like a living tapestry. Raven saw herself, or someone who looked exactly like her, standing in a similar throne room. But this other Raven was different. Her eyes burned with red fire, and her smile was cruel. I am tired of hiding, the other Raven said, her voice echoing across centuries. Tired of pretending that humans deserve to share this world with us. They are cattle, nothing more. Food for vampires, prey for wolves. The first hybrid believed that supernatural beings were meant to rule over humanity, Fenrir explained as the images played out. She sought to unite our species, yes, but through conquest and domination. She would have turned the world into a hunting ground. So we stopped her, Seraphina said softly. Together, vampires and werewolves united for the first and only time in history. We executed her before she could complete her plans. But her soul was too powerful to simply die, Fenrir continued. It was reborn, again and again, waiting for the right moment to return. And now I'm that moment? Raven's voice was barely a whisper. Now you have a choice, Seraphina said. You can complete what she started, or you can choose a different path. The power is yours either way. What power? Instead of answering, Seraphina led her to a pedestal in the center of the throne room. Two crowns sat side by side, one made of silver and moonstone, the other of gold and rubies. The moment Raven looked at them, she felt their pull, like gravity made manifest. The crown of shadows, Seraphina said, indicating the gold and ruby crown. It will make your vampire nature dominant, give you power over blood and death and the darkness between stars. You will rule through fear, as vampires always have. And the crown of stars, Fenrir added, gesturing to the silver crown. It will strengthen your werewolf side, give you dominion over the pack bonds that connect all our kind. You will rule through loyalty and love. But I have to choose? Raven asked. I can't have both. The human body can only contain so much power, Seraphina said. Choose one crown, and that nature will consume the other. You will still be a hybrid, but one side will dominate completely. And if I choose neither? Then you remain as you are, Fenrir said. Powerful, but limited. Unable to fulfill your destiny. What destiny? Raven's frustration boiled over. You keep talking about prophecies and destinies, but what exactly am I supposed to do? Unite our species, Seraphina said simply. End the war that has raged for millennia. Create a world where vampires and werewolves can coexist. And if I refuse? Then the war continues, Fenrir said grimly. And eventually, both species will destroy each other. The prophecy is clear, either you unite us, or we all fall. Raven stared at the crowns, feeling the weight of centuries pressing down on her. I need time to think. Time is a luxury we don't have, Seraphina said. Even now, forces are moving against you. Marcus Blackwood is not what he seems, and the camp you've been attending is part of a larger plan. What plan? To kill you before you can fulfill your destiny, Fenrir said. There are those among both our kinds who prefer the current war to the peace you could bring. So I'm trapped, Raven realized. Accept the crowns and lose myself, or refuse and die. You're not trapped, a new voice said from the shadows. You're being lied to. Raven spun around to find a young woman stepping out of the darkness. She looked to be about 16, with silver hair and eyes that held far too much knowledge for her apparent age. But what made Raven's breath catch was the resemblance. The girl looked like a younger version of her. Who are you? Raven demanded. I'm Nova, the girl said softly. And I'm your daughter. That's impossible. I don't have a daughter. Not yet, Nova said. But I will exist, if you make the right choices. I'm here from a possible future, one where you accepted the crown and became the monster they want you to be. Monster? Raven's voice cracked. The coronation is a trap, Nova said urgently. The crowns don't just make one nature dominant, they amplify your power beyond any ability to control it. In my timeline, you became so powerful that you lost your humanity entirely. You saw humans as nothing more than prey. That's not true, Serafina said, but her voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? Nova challenged. Tell her about the binding spell woven into the crowns. Tell her how accepting either one will trap her in this kingdom forever, unable to leave, unable to connect with the mortal world. The binding is necessary, Fenrir said. A ruler must be committed to their realm. A ruler must be free to choose, Nova shot back. And these crowns don't offer choice, they offer slavery dressed up as destiny. Why should I believe you? Raven asked, though something in Nova's eyes reminded her of herself. Because I've seen what happens when you don't, Nova said. I've lived in a world where vampires and werewolves united, yes, but only to hunt humans to extinction. I've watched my mother become a tyrant who destroyed everything she once loved. And what about Jade? Raven asked quietly. What happens to her in your timeline? Nova's expression crumpled. She tried to stop you. Tried to reach the part of you that was still human. You killed her for it. The words hit Raven like a physical blow. No. I would never hurt Jade. The woman who accepts that crown would, Nova said. Power corrupts, especially power that comes with no limits, no checks, no balances. Then what do you want me to do? Raven asked desperately. Reject the crowns, Nova said. Find another way. Create a new path instead of following the old one. There is no other way, Serafina said coldly. The prophecy is clear. Prophecies can be wrong, Nova said. Or misinterpreted. Or manufactured by those who want to control the outcome. Before anyone could respond, the throne room shuddered. A familiar scent filled the air, wild honey and desert sage. Jade, Raven breathed. The mist that had brought Raven here swirled again, depositing Jade in the center of the throne room. She looked around wildly, her eyes wide with panic and confusion. Where are we? She demanded. 1 minute I was in my bunk, and the next. You followed the bond, Nova said with something like pride. Even partly formed, it was strong enough to let you track her across dimensions. Bond? Jade's gaze found Raven's. What bond? We didn't complete any bonding ritual. Mate bonds don't require rituals, Fenrir said. They simply are. And yours is strong enough to transcend the barriers between worlds. Get away from her, Jade said, moving to stand protectively in front of Raven. I don't know what you're offering, but she doesn't want it. Don't I? Raven asked quietly. They're offering me the power to protect people like you. To stop alphas like Marcus from ever hurting anyone again. By becoming something worse than Marcus? Jade's voice was fierce. By accepting power that will change you into someone I don't recognize? How do you know it will change me? Because I can feel it, Jade said, her hand finding Raven's. Through whatever bond we have, I can feel the darkness in those crowns. They're not offering you power, they're offering you corruption. The power to protect, Raven began. Is not the same as the power to control, Jade interrupted. And that's what this is about, isn't it? Control. They want to control you, use you, make you into their weapon. We want to give her the tools to fulfill her destiny, Serafina said. Her destiny is her own to choose, Jade said firmly. Not yours to dictate. You don't understand the stakes, Fenrir said. Without her, our species will destroy each other. Then maybe it's time to find a solution that doesn't require sacrificing one person's soul, Jade shot back. There is no other solution, Serafina said. There's always another solution, Nova said quietly. You just have to be brave enough to look for it. Raven looked around the throne room, at the two monarchs who claimed to need her, at the girl who claimed to be her daughter, at the woman who had already risked everything to stand by her side. The weight of choice pressed down on her like a physical thing. What if I took the crowns but refused to use them as you want? She asked. What if I found a middle path? The magic doesn't work that way, Nova said sadly. The crowns are designed to amplify your darkest impulses. Your first incarnation wasn't evil by choice, she was corrupted by the very power she thought would help her do good. Then I refuse, Raven said, the words feeling like they were torn from her chest. I won't risk becoming that. You don't have a choice, Seraphina said, and suddenly her beautiful face was cold as winter. The summoning cannot be undone. You will remain here until you choose. She's not choosing anything, Jade said, stepping forward. We're leaving. You cannot leave, Fenrir said. The binding doesn't apply to me, Jade interrupted. I'm not part of your prophecy. Which means I can break whatever spell is holding us here. Impossible, Seraphina said, but she sounded uncertain. Is it? Nova asked, and for the first time, she smiled. Mom always said that love was the strongest magic of all. Maybe it's time to put that theory to the test. Jade took Raven's hand, and immediately the air around them began to shimmer. The mate bond that had been growing between them flared to life, not demanding or possessive, but warm and protective and completely freely given. Hold on, Jade said, her eyes locked on Raven's. Whatever happens, don't let go. Never, Raven promised, and meant it. The last thing she saw before the throne room dissolved around them was Nova's face, proud and hopeful and determined. Find another way, Mom, the girl whispered. I know you can. Then they were falling through darkness again, but this time they were falling together, and somehow that made all the difference. They landed hard on the cabin floor, gasping and shaking. Sierra was still asleep in her bunk, completely unaware that her sister had just traveled to another dimension and back. Are you okay? Jade whispered, her hands running over Raven's face and arms, checking for injuries. I think so, Raven said, though her whole body felt like she'd been hit by lightning. But Jade, what they said about the prophecy. Doesn't matter, Jade said firmly. Whatever destiny they think you have, you get to choose how to fulfill it. You don't have to sacrifice yourself to save the world. But what if they're right? What if I'm the only one who can stop the war between our species? Then we'll find another way, Jade said, echoing Nova's words. Together. But we'll do it on our terms, not theirs. Raven looked into Jade's eyes and saw something there that made her heart skip, not just love, but faith. Faith in her, in them, in the possibility that they could write their own story. Together, she agreed, and pulled Jade close. Outside the cabin, dawn was breaking over the mountains. But in the growing light, neither of them noticed the figure watching from the tree line, or the way Marcus Blackwood's eyes glowed red with fury as he realized his carefully laid plans had just been disrupted by the one thing he'd never accounted for: love. Chapter 4, The Weight of Crowns. The morning sun felt different on Raven's skin as she walked to the training grounds. Everything felt different now, the air tasted sharper, colors seemed more vivid, and she could hear conversations from across the camp as clearly as if people were whispering in her ear. The phantom weight of a crown she'd never worn pressed against her temples. You're distracted, Jade said quietly, falling into step beside her. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her usually perfect posture was slightly hunched, as if she were protecting something precious. Just tired, Raven lied, not wanting to worry her. The truth was that she hadn't slept at all. Every time she closed her eyes, visions flooded her mind, flashes of possible futures that all ended the same way. Blood on her hands. Jade's lifeless body. Cities burning while she stood on a throne of bones. Liar, Jade said, but her tone was gentle. I can feel your distress through the bond. That was new too. The mate bond had strengthened dramatically since their journey to the other realm, creating a constant hum of connection between them. Sometimes Raven caught herself reaching for emotions that weren't hers, or responding to Jade's thoughts before she'd even spoken them. Is it the visions again? Jade asked. Raven nodded, grateful that she didn't have to explain. Jade had been there for the worst of them, the one where Raven had torn Marcus apart with her bare hands, the one where she'd fed on an entire pack of werewolves, The one where she'd stood over Jade's grave with blood-red eyes and a smile that belonged to someone else entirely. "They're just possibilities," Jade said, her hand finding Raven's and squeezing. "Not certainties." "But what if they're warnings?" Raven asked. "What if I'm destined to become that monster no matter what I choose?" "Then we'll find a way to change destiny," Jade said firmly. "We already proved that's possible." Before Raven could respond, a familiar voice cut through the morning air. "Raven. There you are." They turned to find Elena approaching, her usually perfect appearance slightly disheveled. The witch looked like she hadn't slept either, and there was an urgency in her stride that made Raven's enhanced senses go on alert. "We need to talk," Elena said, glancing around to make sure they weren't overheard. "Both of you. Now." She led them to a secluded grove at the edge of camp, where ancient trees formed a natural barrier against prying eyes. The moment they stepped into the circle of oaks, Raven felt the shift in the air, magic, thick and protective. "You've been having visions," Elena said without preamble. "And you," she turned to Jade, "have been experiencing morning sickness that's far more severe than it should be." "How do you?" Jade began. "Because I've been monitoring both of you since the night you disappeared," Elena interrupted. "The magical signature of your little interdimensional journey was impossible to miss. Half the supernatural community felt it." "You're a witch," Raven said. "You told me you were monitoring hybrid activity." "I am, but not for the reasons you think." Elena's expression was grim. "I'm part of a group called the Covenant, witches, fae, and other magical beings who've been working to prevent the prophecy from coming to pass." "Because you think I'll become the monster from the visions," Raven said flatly. "Because we know what really happened 500 years ago," Elena corrected. "The first hybrid wasn't corrupted by power, she was driven insane by it. The magical system that creates hybrids is fundamentally flawed. It's designed to create beings too powerful for their own minds to contain." "That's impossible," Jade said. "Raven is perfectly sane." "For now," Elena said. "But she's already showing signs of magical overflow. The enhanced senses, the visions, the way she's been unconsciously feeding on emotions around her, it's all going to get worse." "Feeding on emotions?" Raven's blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "You haven't noticed?" Elena asked. "The way people seem slightly drained after talking to you? The way you know exactly what they're feeling before they do?" Raven thought about the past few days, about how she'd been able to sense Sierra's worry, Jade's fear, even Marcus's barely concealed rage. She'd assumed it was just enhanced empathy, but now that Elena mentioned it, people did seem tired after interacting with her. "I'm feeding on them," she whispered. "Like a parasite." "Not intentionally," Elena said quickly. "It's an involuntary response to magical overload. Your hybrid nature is trying to find an outlet for all that power, and emotions are the easiest target." "Can you stop it?" Jade asked, her hand moving protectively to her stomach. "I can teach her to control it," Elena said. "But it will require intensive training, and it has to be done in secret. If Marcus finds out." "Marcus already knows," Raven said quietly. "About my true nature, I mean. I can feel his suspicion every time he looks at me." "Then we're running out of time," Elena said grimly. "Because Marcus isn't just a camp director. He's a hunter." "A hunter?" Jade's voice was sharp with fear. "The kind that specializes in killing hybrids," Elena confirmed. "He's been working with a group called the Purifiers, humans who believe that supernatural beings need to be eliminated." "But he's a werewolf," Raven protested. "Why would he work with people who want to kill his own kind?" "Because he believes that keeping the species separate is the only way to prevent another hybrid apocalypse," Elena said. "He's been systematically eliminating hybrids for decades, but you're different. You're too powerful to kill directly." "So what's his plan?" Jade asked. "To corrupt you," Elena said. "To push you toward the dark path until you become the monster he can justify destroying. And he's been using Jade as his weapon." "What do you mean?" Raven's voice was dangerous. "The forced marking," Elena said. It wasn't just abuse, it was a binding spell. Marcus marked Jade with his own blood, creating a connection he can use to influence her emotions. He's been pushing feelings of fear and rejection toward you, trying to trigger your darker impulses. That's impossible, Jade said. I can feel the difference between my emotions and artificial ones. Can you? Elena asked. Or have you been so traumatized by past experiences that you can't tell the difference anymore? Jade's face went pale. The nightmares, she whispered. The sudden panic attacks when Raven gets too close. I thought it was just trauma, but it's been getting worse since we arrived at camp, Raven finished. And it's strongest when Marcus is around. He's been amplifying your worst fears, Elena confirmed. Trying to make you reject the mate bond completely. If you push Raven away when she's already struggling with power overflow, it could trigger a complete psychological break. So what do we do? Raven asked. We break the binding, Elena said. And we start your training immediately. But first, we need to deal with the immediate problem. Which is your pregnancy, Elena said to Jade. The baby you're carrying isn't just a hybrid, it's the child of two extremely powerful supernatural beings. The magical load is literally killing you from the inside. How long do I have? Jade asked, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. Without intervention? Maybe a month, Elena said. But there's a way to stabilize the pregnancy. It requires a blood ritual that will permanently link your life force to Raven's. You'll share everything, power, emotions, even lifespan. That sounds dangerous, Raven said. It is, Elena admitted. If one of you dies, the other will follow within hours. And the psychic connection will be so strong that you'll essentially become two parts of the same soul. Do it, Jade said without hesitation. Jade, no, Raven protested. You don't understand what you're asking. If I lose control, if I become the monster from the visions, I could drag you down with me. Then don't become the monster, Jade said simply. Choose to be better. It's not that simple. It is, Jade interrupted. Every vision you've had, every possible future, they all depend on you choosing power over love. So choose love instead. And if that's not enough? Then we'll figure it out together, Jade said. But I'm not going to let you face this alone, and I'm not going to let our child die because we were too afraid to take risks. Raven looked into Jade's eyes and saw the same fierce determination that had carried them through their escape from the other realm. The same faith that had made her believe they could write their own story. Okay, she said quietly. What do we need to do? Meet me here tonight after lights out, Elena said. And bring something that belongs to Marcus, something he's worn or carried for a long time. We'll need it to break the binding. What about Sierra? Raven asked. She's been asking questions about why I've been acting strange. Tell her the truth, Elena said. About the pregnancy, at least. She's going to figure it out soon anyway, and it's better if she hears it from you. And if she doesn't take it well? Then we'll deal with that too, Elena said. But Raven, you need to understand something. The choices you make in the next few days will determine not just your fate, but the fate of everyone you care about. The visions you've been having aren't random, they're showing you the consequences of different paths. What do you mean? Every time you choose fear over love, every time you choose power over connection, you move closer to the dark timeline, Elena explained. But every time you choose the harder path, the one that requires you to trust others and accept help, you move toward a different future. A future where everyone lives? Raven asked hopefully. A future where everyone has a chance to live, Elena corrected. I can't promise you a happy ending, but I can promise you that the choice is yours to make. As they walked back toward camp, Raven found herself thinking about Nova's words. Find another way. Create a new path. Maybe the key wasn't avoiding the crowns or the prophecy, but finding a way to fulfill her destiny without losing herself in the process. Jade, she said quietly. When we do this ritual, when we link our life forces, will you still be able to help me stay human? I'll do more than that, Jade said. I'll remind you every day why humanity is worth preserving. Even if it means sharing my darkness? Especially then, Jade said. Because darkness shared is darkness halved, and light shared is light doubled. That evening, after Sierra had finally fallen asleep, Raven slipped out of their cabin and made her way to the grove. Jade was already there, along with Elena, who had drawn intricate symbols in the dirt with what looked like silver powder. Did you get it? Elena asked. Raven pulled Marcus's watch from her pocket. She'd lifted it from his office during dinner, using her enhanced speed to move faster than human eyes could follow. The watch was old, worn smooth by decades of handling, and it reeked of his scent. Perfect, Elena said. Now, before we begin, I need you both to understand what you're committing to. This isn't just a temporary fix, it's a permanent change to your fundamental nature. You'll be bound together for life, sharing power, emotions, and magical essence. Are you absolutely certain this is what you want? Yes, Jade said firmly. Yes, Raven echoed, though her heart was racing. Then let's begin. The ritual was unlike anything Raven had ever experienced. Elena chanted in a language that sounded like wind through leaves, and the silver symbols began to glow with their own inner light. When Elena pricked their palms with a ceremonial knife, their blood mixed and sparked, creating patterns in the air that burned themselves into Raven's memory. Then came the moment of connection. Jade's consciousness rushed into Raven's mind like a river breaking through a dam, and suddenly she could feel everything: Jade's love, her fear, her desperate hope that they were making the right choice. But underneath it all was something else, a deep, abiding strength that took Raven's breath away. You're incredible, Raven whispered, not sure if she was speaking aloud or through their new mental link. So are you, Jade replied, her voice echoing in Raven's mind. And now we're incredible together. The ritual reached its crescendo when Elena crushed Marcus's watch in her hands, speaking words of unbinding that seemed to shake the very air around them. Raven felt something snap inside her mind, a cold, foreign presence that had been whispering doubts and fears suddenly vanished, leaving her feeling clear-headed for the first time in days. It's done, Elena said, sagging with exhaustion. The binding is broken, and your life forces are linked. How do you feel? Whole, Raven said, surprised by the truth of it. For the first time in my life, I feel whole. The baby? Jade asked, her hand moving to her stomach. Stable, Elena confirmed. The shared life force is giving it what it needs to develop properly. But you'll need to be careful, the pregnancy will still be difficult, and the birth. She shook her head. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. What about Marcus? Raven asked. Now that the binding is broken, what will he do? He'll escalate, Elena said grimly. He's been planning something for the full moon tomorrow night, some kind of demonstration that will expose your true nature to the entire camp. We need to be ready. Ready for what? For the choice that will define the rest of your life, Elena said. Marcus is going to try to force you into a situation where you have to choose between protecting the people you love and maintaining your humanity. He's counting on you choosing power over compassion. Then he's going to be disappointed, Raven said, taking Jade's hand. Because I've already made my choice. Have you? Elena asked. Because tomorrow night, when you're faced with the death of everyone you care about, when the only way to save them is to embrace the darkness you've been fighting, will you still choose love over power? Raven thought about the visions, about the possible futures where she stood triumphant over the bodies of her enemies. About the crown that had promised her the strength to protect everyone she loved. I'll choose love, she said quietly. Even if it kills me. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, Elena said. Because the world needs you alive, Raven. Not as a monster or a goddess, but as exactly what you are, a bridge between worlds, a living proof that two opposing forces can coexist in harmony. As they walked back toward camp, Raven felt the weight of tomorrow pressing down on her. But for the first time since this all began, she wasn't facing it alone. Jade's presence in her mind was like a constant flame, warm and steady and utterly unafraid. Whatever happens tomorrow, Jade said through their bond, we face it together. Together, Raven agreed, and meant it with every fiber of her being. Behind them, Elena watched them go and whispered a prayer to whatever gods might be listening. Tomorrow would bring the real test, not of Raven's power, but of her humanity. And the fate of two entire species hung in the balance. If you're excited about today's content, make sure to hit that like button, and suppose you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, you won't be able to know when our next audiobook will be released, therefore hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Chapter 5, Blood and Moonlight. The sky bled crimson as the blood moon rose over the mountains, casting everything in an otherworldly glow that made the camp look like something from a fever dream. Raven stood at the cabin window, watching the moon climb higher, feeling the pull of it in her bones like a physical thing. "It's beautiful," Jade whispered from the bed, though her voice was tight with pain. She'd been having contractions for the past hour, each one stronger than the last. "It's dangerous," Raven corrected, pressing her palm against the glass. The moon seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat, and every pulse sent shockwaves through her system. Her vampire side was stirring, responding to the ancient magic in the air, while her wolf paced restlessly beneath her skin. "The convergence is accelerating everything," Elena said from the corner, where she'd been monitoring Jade's condition with a combination of medical knowledge and magical sight. "The blood moon amplifies vampire abilities, while the full moon calls to the wolf. Having both at once is tearing me apart," Raven finished, gripping the windowsill so hard the wood splintered. She could feel her two natures warring inside her, each trying to claim dominance. Her canine teeth had elongated into proper fangs, while her human nails had sharpened into claws. Most disturbing of all, she could feel her empathic abilities spiraling out of control, pulling emotions from everyone within a 100-yard radius. "Raven," Jade called softly, and the sound of her name spoken with such love helped center her. The bond between them hummed with warmth, Jade's presence in her mind like an anchor in a storm. "I'm here," Raven said, moving to sit beside her on the bed. "How are you feeling?" "Like I'm about to give birth during a supernatural apocalypse," Jade said with a weak smile. "But the baby's okay. I can feel her, she's strong." "Her?" Raven's heart skipped. "You know it's a girl?" "I can sense her consciousness," Jade said, her eyes wide with wonder. "She's aware, Raven. Really aware. More than any unborn child should be." Before Raven could respond, the air outside exploded with sound, howls and screams and the distinctive crack of gunfire. Through the window, she could see figures in black tactical gear surrounding the camp, their weapons glinting in the moonlight. "Hunters," Elena breathed, her face pale. "They're using the convergence to mask their approach." "How many?" Raven asked, her enhanced hearing picking up at least a dozen heartbeats. "Too many," Elena said grimly. "And they're led by Marcus," Raven finished, catching his scent on the wind. But it was different now, tainted with something metallic and wrong. "He's not just working with hunters. He's become something else." A new contraction hit Jade, stronger than the others, and she cried out in pain. "The baby's coming," she gasped. "Now." "No," Raven said desperately. "Not now. Not with hunters outside." "Tell that to your daughter," Jade said through gritted teeth. "She's decided she wants to be born during the most dangerous night of our lives." More gunfire erupted outside, followed by inhuman screams. Through their bond, Raven felt other werewolves shifting, their pack instincts triggered by the threat. But something was wrong, the shifts were happening too fast, too violently, as if the blood moon was stripping away their control. "They're using the convergence against us," Elena realized. "Forcing premature shifts, overwhelming our control. It's chaos out there." "I have to help them," Raven said, starting to rise. "You can't leave me," Jade said, grabbing her wrist. "I need you here. The baby." "I can't let them slaughter everyone," Raven said, torn between her mate and her conscience. "Then we do this together," Jade said with fierce determination. "Elena, can you deliver the baby?" "I'm a witch, not a doctor," Elena protested. "But you've got magic," Jade said. "And right now, that's better than medical training." Before Elena could respond, their cabin door exploded inward. Marcus stood in the doorway, but he barely looked human anymore. His eyes glowed with an unnatural red light, and his scent carried the metallic tang of vampire blood mixed with something else, something ancient and evil. "Hello, Raven," he said, his voice carrying harmonics that made her teeth ache. "I've been looking forward to this conversation. What did you do to yourself?" Raven demanded, moving to shield Jade. "I made myself strong enough to kill you," Marcus said simply. "Vampire blood, witch magic, and a few other ingredients. I'm what you might call a custom hybrid." "You're an abomination," Elena spat. "I'm a weapon," Marcus corrected. "Created specifically to end the hybrid threat before it can destroy both our species." "I'm not a threat," Raven said, though she could feel her control slipping as the blood moon reached its zenith. Her vampire side was screaming for violence, while her wolf wanted to tear Marcus apart with her bare hands. "Aren't you?" Marcus asked, tilting his head. "Can you feel it, Raven? The hunger? The need to feed, to dominate, to take what you want by force? That's your vampire nature talking. And your wolf, it wants to establish dominance over every other werewolf in the camp. You're fighting a war inside yourself, and eventually, one side will win." "I won't let that happen," Raven said, though even as she spoke, she could feel her fangs extending further. "You don't have a choice," Marcus said. "The convergence is forcing the issue. By dawn, you'll either be a vampire who thinks she's a werewolf, or a werewolf who thinks she's a vampire. Either way, you'll be powerful enough to destroy everything you claim to love." Another contraction hit Jade, and this time she screamed. The sound triggered something primal in Raven's wolf, and she felt her human consciousness start to slip. "That's it," Marcus said with satisfaction. "Let the animal out. Show everyone what you really are." "Raven, no," Elena said sharply. "Don't let him bait you. Remember what we talked about, love over power." But it was too late. The scent of Jade's pain mixed with the metallic taste of blood from the battle outside, and Raven's control snapped. She shifted, not into her wolf form, but into something else entirely. Her body elongated, her muscles bulging with impossible strength. Her fangs grew into proper vampire teeth, while her claws extended into razor-sharp talons. She was becoming something that had never existed before, a true hybrid in its most primal form. "Beautiful," Marcus breathed. "This is what you were meant to be." Raven lunged at him, moving faster than human eyes could follow. But Marcus was ready for her, his own enhanced abilities allowing him to match her speed. They crashed through the cabin wall, rolling across the ground in a tangle of claws and fangs. Behind them, Jade's labor intensified. "Elena," she gasped, "I need help." "The baby, something's wrong." Elena rushed to her side, her hands glowing with magical energy. "The baby's coming too fast," she said. "And she's not entirely human." "What do you mean?" Jade asked, though she could feel it too, their daughter's consciousness pressing against hers, ancient and knowing and far too aware. "She's conscious," Elena said in wonder. "Fully conscious, like she's been alive for years instead of months." Outside, the battle between Raven and Marcus raged on. Other campers had joined the fight against the hunters, but the supernatural chaos was making it impossible to tell friend from foe. Werewolves shifted back and forth uncontrollably, their forms twisted by the blood moon's influence. Several had already fallen to hunter weapons, their bodies scattered across the moonlit ground. "Sierra!" Raven screamed, catching sight of her sister trying to help a wounded camper. A hunter was advancing on them, his silver weapon raised. Raven moved without thinking, her hybrid form covering the distance in seconds. She reached Sierra just as the hunter fired, taking the silver bullet meant for her sister. The impact sent her sprawling, silver burning through her system like liquid fire. "Raven!" Sierra cried, dropping to her knees beside her. "Oh God, what are you? What's happening to you?" "I'm still me," Raven gasped, though she wasn't sure that was true anymore. The silver was spreading through her bloodstream, and she could feel her hybrid nature fighting against it. I'm still your sister. The baby's coming. Elena shouted from the cabin. Jade, I need you to push. I can't, Jade sobbed. Something's wrong. She's too strong, she's fighting me. The hunter raised his weapon again, aiming at Sierra. Raven tried to move, but the silver had paralyzed her. She was going to watch her sister die, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Unless... Sierra, she whispered, grabbing her sister's hand. I'm sorry. Before Sierra could ask what she meant, Raven bit down on her sister's wrist, injecting vampire venom directly into her bloodstream. Sierra's scream cut through the night as the change began immediately, her human blood burning away to be replaced by something darker and more powerful. What did you do? Sierra cried, her eyes already beginning to glow with vampire fire. I saved your life, Raven said, then collapsed as the silver finally overcame her system. In the cabin, Jade gave one final, devastating push, and their daughter slipped into the world. But instead of crying like a normal baby, she opened her eyes and spoke in a voice that carried the weight of centuries. Asterisk sanguinem et luna, mortis et vita, asterisk, she said in perfect Latin, her infant voice somehow carrying the authority of an ancient oracle. Asterisk I am the bridge between worlds, the key to salvation or destruction, asterisk. Elena stared at the newborn in shock. The baby looked normal, tiny and perfect, with Raven's dark hair and Jade's eyes. But her gaze was that of someone who had lived for millennia, and when she spoke again, it was in a language that predated human civilization. Asterisk the choice comes now, asterisk, the baby continued, her voice carrying impossible wisdom. Asterisk my mother must choose between the crown of shadows and the crown of light. But there is a third path, one that requires the ultimate sacrifice, asterisk. Nova, Jade whispered, somehow knowing her daughter's name. What are you saying? Asterisk I am saying that the prophecy was incomplete, asterisk, Nova replied, her infant features serene despite the chaos around them. Asterisk the hybrid queen was never meant to rule, she was meant to die. To sacrifice herself so that others might live in harmony, asterisk. Outside, Marcus stood over Raven's paralyzed form, his weapon raised for the killing blow. Sierra knelt beside them, her transformation nearly complete, her new vampire nature warring with her human love for her sister. Choose, Marcus said to Sierra. Save your sister and damn the world, or let her die and preserve the balance. I choose family, Sierra said, her voice carrying new power. She moved faster than Marcus could react, her newborn vampire strength allowing her to tear his weapon away and hurl him across the camp. But as she helped Raven to her feet, Nova's words echoed in the night, asterisk the sacrifice must be willing. The queen must choose to die so that others may live, asterisk. Raven looked at her sister, her mate, her newborn daughter, and felt the weight of destiny settling on her shoulders like a shroud. The blood moon reached its peak, and she knew that whatever choice she made in the next few minutes would determine the fate of everyone she loved. Chapter 6, Exodus and Empire. The morning sun cast long shadows across the marble terrace of Shadowhaven Castle, the seat of power for the supernatural kingdom that had risen from the ashes of the old world. Raven stood at the balustrade, watching her subjects move through the courtyards below with the easy confidence of those who had found their place in the world. Vampires and werewolves worked side by side, their ancient enmity transformed into something approaching harmony. 3 years. 3 years since the blood moon that had changed everything, since Nova had been born speaking prophecies in dead languages, since Raven had chosen love over power and somehow managed to forge a new path. The scars from that night still marked her body, silver burns that had never fully healed, a reminder of the price of her choices. You're brooding again, Jade said, joining her at the balustrade. Even after 3 years of ruling, she still took Raven's breath away. Motherhood had given her a quiet strength that complemented her natural grace, and the crown of stars she wore seemed to capture the morning light and hold it. I'm thinking, Raven corrected, slipping an arm around her wife's waist. The familiar warmth of their bond hummed between them, steady and sure after all this time. About the reports from the human governments. They're getting bolder. The coalition meeting in Geneva? Jade's expression grew serious. Elena's intelligence suggests they're planning something more than sanctions. Military action, Raven said quietly. They see us as a threat to their established order. A kingdom of monsters that needs to be eliminated before we spread. Are we spreading? Jade asked. I mean, we've been careful to keep our borders contained, to only accept those who seek us out. We're growing, Raven admitted. Word travels. Every supernatural being who's been hiding in the shadows of human society eventually hears about Shadowhaven. About a place where they can be themselves without fear. And that terrifies them, Jade said. The humans, I mean. The idea that we exist, that we're not just myths and legends. It should terrify them, a new voice said from behind them. They turned to see Nova approaching, her 15-year-old body moving with the predatory grace of someone far older. She looked like a perfect blend of her parents, Raven's dark hair, Jade's green eyes, and an otherworldly beauty that made humans stop and stare. But it was her expression that worried Raven most. Cold, calculating, utterly devoid of the warmth that should have characterized a teenager. Nova, Jade said carefully. I thought you were in lessons with Professor Blackthorn. Ancient history is boring, Nova said with a dismissive wave. Besides, I already know everything he's trying to teach me. I lived through most of it. That was the problem. Nova carried the memories of her previous incarnation, the original hybrid who had tried to conquer the world 5 centuries ago. Despite Raven's best efforts to nurture her daughter's humanity, those ancient memories were growing stronger, more influential. You didn't live through it, Raven said firmly. You have memories of it, but they're not yours. They belong to someone else. Someone who was also me, Nova countered. Someone who had the courage to do what needed to be done. Someone who was a monster, Jade said quietly. Nova's eyes flashed with something dangerous. Someone who was strong enough to claim what was rightfully hers. Unlike my weak mother, who chose to hide in this little kingdom instead of taking her place as ruler of the world. Nova, Raven's voice carried the authority of both vampire and werewolf alpha. That's enough. For a moment, they stared at each other, mother and daughter locked in a battle of wills that had been brewing for months. Then Nova smiled, and the expression was so cold it made Raven's blood freeze. Of course, mother, she said sweetly. I was just expressing my opinion. Surely even queens are allowed to have those? Before Raven could respond, a commotion in the courtyard below caught their attention. A group of their subjects, mostly vampires, had gathered around something, their voices raised in what sounded like heated argument. What's that about? Jade asked. Let's find out, Raven said, grateful for the distraction from her daughter's increasingly troubling behavior. They made their way down to the courtyard, where they found the crowd gathered around Sierra, who was holding a small bundle in her arms. Raven's heart clenched when she realized what she was seeing. Is that? Jade began. Kai, Sierra said softly, pulling back the blanket to reveal the face of their second child. Born just 3 days ago, he was perfect, dark hair like his mother's, but with eyes that were purely human blue. No fangs, no enhanced senses, no supernatural abilities that they could detect. He's beautiful, Jade whispered, reaching out to touch her son's face. He's weak, one of the vampires in the crowd said loudly. How can 2 queens produce such a pathetic heir? Careful, Raven said, her voice carrying a warning that made several of the crowd step back. You're speaking about my son. We're speaking about the future of our kingdom, the vampire continued, undeterred. What kind of message does this send? That our queens are so deluded that they can't even produce a proper supernatural child? Kai is exactly what he's meant to be, Jade said firmly, taking the baby from Sierra's arms. And he's perfect. Perfect? Another voice spoke up, this one from a werewolf. He doesn't even have the basic enhanced senses of a normal wolf pup. How will he lead us? How will he protect our kind? He's 3 days old, Raven said, her patience wearing thin. Maybe we should let him learn to walk before we start planning his military campaigns. But she could see the doubt in their subjects' eyes, the way they looked at Kai not with the reverence due to a prince, but with disappointment and something approaching disgust. It was the same look she'd seen in her own mirror during her darkest moments, the fear that she wasn't enough, that she would never be enough. Perhaps, Nova said, appearing at her side with that unsettling silent grace, this is nature's way of telling us that the weak shouldn't inherit the earth. The crowd murmured agreement, and Raven felt something cold settle in her stomach. Her daughter was gathering support among their subjects, using their disappointment in Kai to further her own agenda. Everyone back to your duties, Raven commanded, using the alpha voice that compelled obedience. Now. The crowd dispersed, but not before Raven caught the calculating look in Nova's eyes. Her daughter was planning something, and she had the growing suspicion that it wouldn't be good for any of them. We need to talk, Jade said quietly once they were alone. About Kai, about Nova, about what's happening to our kingdom. I know, Raven said, looking down at her son's peaceful face. But first, we need to deal with the immediate threat. Elena's intelligence suggests the human coalition is planning to move within the week. What kind of move? The kind that involves missiles and military strikes, a familiar voice said behind them. They turned to find Elena approaching, her usual composed demeanor replaced by something that looked like barely controlled panic. Elena, Jade said. Please tell me you have good news. I have news, Elena said carefully. Whether it's good or bad depends on your perspective. Just tell us, Raven said. The human governments have discovered our location. They're planning a coordinated strike using conventional weapons, but that's not the worst part. Elena paused, seeming to gather her courage. They're not working alone. What do you mean? They've been contacted by representatives from the old vampire courts. The ones who were overthrown when you established this kingdom. Elena's face was pale. They've offered to help the humans destroy Shadowhaven in exchange for being allowed to return to power. Traitors, Jade breathed. It gets worse, Elena continued. The vampire representatives have promised the humans that they can control the supernatural population, keep them in line, prevent future uprisings. They're offering to be the humans' puppet rulers. Over my dead body, Raven snarled, her vampire nature surging to the surface. That's exactly what they're counting on, Elena said. They want you dead, Raven. They see you as the biggest threat to their plans. Then we fight, Raven said simply. We protect our people. Against the combined military might of several human governments? Elena asked. Even with our supernatural abilities, we're vastly outnumbered. Then we level the playing field, Nova said, stepping forward. We show them what real power looks like. Nova, no, Jade said firmly. We're not going to start a war with humanity. Why not? Nova asked. They're planning to destroy us anyway. At least this way, we strike first. Because that's not who we are, Raven said. We're not conquerors. We're protectors. Speak for yourself, Nova said, and there was something in her tone that made Raven's blood run cold. I remember what it felt like to have real power. To make the world bend to my will instead of constantly compromising and accommodating. Those aren't your memories, Jade said desperately. They're echoes of someone else's life. They're my memories, Nova said with certainty. And they're telling me that it's time to stop pretending we're equals with humans. We're better than them. Stronger, faster, more evolved. Why should we hide in this little kingdom when we could rule the world? Because ruling through fear isn't ruling at all, Raven said. It's tyranny. It's survival, Nova countered. And it's time my weak mother learned the difference. Before anyone could respond, Nova turned and walked away, her movement carrying the same predatory grace that had characterized the original hybrid. Raven watched her go with a growing sense of dread. She's becoming dangerous, Elena said quietly. She's becoming herself, Raven corrected. Or rather, she's becoming who she was before. Can we stop her? Jade asked, rocking Kai gently in her arms. I don't know, Raven admitted. But we have to try. For Kai's sake, if nothing else. About that, Elena said, her tone becoming even more serious. There's something else you need to know. About Kai, about why he was born human. What do you mean? Elena glanced around, making sure they were truly alone. I've been researching hybrid genetics, trying to understand how supernatural traits are passed down. Kai isn't weak, he's balanced. Balanced how? He has both vampire and werewolf traits, but they're in perfect equilibrium. He's not displaying supernatural abilities because his dual nature is so perfectly integrated that it's essentially invisible. Elena's eyes were bright with excitement. He's what hybrids were meant to be, not torn between two natures, but united in one. So he's not powerless? Jade asked hopefully. He's potentially the most powerful hybrid ever born, Elena said. But his power won't manifest until he's older, and when it does, it will be unlike anything we've seen before. He won't be vampire or werewolf, he'll be something entirely new. Something that could challenge Nova? Raven asked. Something that could save us all, Elena said. But there's a catch. There always is, Raven said wearily. I haven't been entirely honest with you, Elena said, her voice dropping to a whisper. About who I really work for, about why I've been helping you all these years. Elena, Jade said warningly. I work for the Council of Shadows, Elena said quickly. An ancient vampire organization that predates all the modern courts. They've been watching you since the night you were born, waiting for the right moment to act. Act how? Raven's voice was dangerous. They want to perform a ritual, Elena said. One that will transfer your consciousness into a new body, one that can handle the full power of both your incarnations. They want to resurrect the original hybrid, but with your memories and personality intact. That's impossible, Jade said. It's not, Elena said. They've been preparing for centuries. They have the body, a perfect clone, aged to maturity, designed to contain unlimited supernatural power. They want to give you the choice. What choice? Become the goddess you were meant to be, Elena said. Accept the full power of both incarnations and rule the world as it should be ruled, by someone strong enough to protect both humans and supernatural beings. And if I refuse? Then they'll find another way, Elena said. They've been manipulating events for years, engineering situations that would push you toward accepting their offer. The attack on the camp, the Hunter Coalition, even the human governments discovering our location, it's all been orchestrated to force your hand. You've been lying to us, Raven said, her voice deadly quiet. I've been protecting you, Elena said desperately. The council wants to help you, but they're not patient. If you don't accept their offer willingly, they'll take more drastic measures. Such as? They'll kill everyone you love, Elena said. Your wife, your children, your sister, everyone in this kingdom. They'll leave you with nothing but your power and your rage, and eventually, you'll become the monster they want you to be. Get out, Raven said. Raven, please. Get out. Raven roared, her hybrid nature surging to the surface. Before I forget that we were once friends. Elena looked like she wanted to say more, but the expression on Raven's face stopped her. She nodded once and backed away, leaving them alone with the weight of her revelations. What do we do? Jade asked, her voice small. We protect our family, Raven said, taking Kai from her arms and holding him close. We protect our people. And we find a way to stop everyone who wants to use us. Even Nova? Raven looked in the direction her daughter had gone, remembering the cold calculation in her eyes. Especially Nova. And the Council of Shadows? We'll deal with them when the time comes, Raven said. But first, we need to survive the next few days. The human coalition, the vampire courts, Nova's growing influence, we have enemies on all sides. Then we'd better start planning, Jade said, straightening her shoulders. Because I'm not losing my family. Not to anyone. No, Raven agreed, feeling the familiar fire of determination burning in her chest. We're not. As they walked back toward the castle, Kai sleeping peacefully in Raven's arms, neither of them noticed the figure watching from the shadows. Nova stood in the doorway, her expression unreadable, listening to every word they'd spoken. Soon, she whispered to herself, her voice carrying harmonics that would have been familiar to anyone who had known the original hybrid. Very soon, I'll show you what real power looks like. The pieces were all in motion now, the human coalition preparing for war, the vampire courts plotting their return to power, the Council of Shadows maneuvering to resurrect their goddess. And at the center of it all, a family torn between love and destiny, trying to find a way to survive in a world that wanted to use them or destroy them. The empire they had built was about to face its greatest test, and the choices they made in the coming days would determine not just their own fate, but the fate of every supernatural being in the world. If you're excited about today's content, make sure to hit that like button, and suppose you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, you won't be able to know when our next audiobook will be released, therefore hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Chapter 7, The Sins of Fathers. The attack came at dawn, when the mist still clung to the valleys surrounding Shadowhaven Castle like ghostly fingers. Raven woke to the sound of explosions echoing across the courtyard, the ancient stones trembling beneath her feet as she rolled from bed. Jade was already moving, her werewolf instincts having sensed the danger seconds before the first blast. How many? Raven asked, pulling on her leather fighting gear with practiced efficiency. Too many, Jade replied, her enhanced hearing picking up the cacophony of voices, weapons, and supernatural energy converging on their home. This isn't just a raid, it's a full-scale invasion. Through the tall windows of their chamber, they could see the attackers streaming across the landscape like a dark tide. Human military vehicles rumbled alongside supernatural creatures moving with inhuman speed. The sight made Raven's blood run cold. She'd never seen such a coordinated assault between species that had historically been enemies. Nova, Jade whispered, her maternal instincts kicking in. Where is she? Safe, a voice said from the doorway. They turned to find Nova standing there, but something was wrong. Her usual rebellious teenage demeanor had been replaced by something ancient and calculating. At least, safer than the rest of you will be. Nova, what? Raven began, but her daughter cut her off. The Council of Shadows sends their regards, Nova said, her voice carrying harmonics that made the windows vibrate. They're quite impressed with the army they've assembled for today's festivities. You're working with them, Jade said, her voice filled with the kind of devastation that could only come from a mother's betrayal. I'm working with myself, Nova corrected. The Council simply shares my vision for the future. A future where the strong don't pretend to be weak, where monsters don't play house with humans. Another explosion rocked the castle, closer this time. Raven could hear her subjects screaming, could smell the acrid smoke of burning stone and flesh. Her people were dying while she stood here listening to her daughter's manifesto. We'll deal with this later, Raven said, starting toward the door. Right now, we need to. You need to know who's leading this assault, Nova interrupted. It might change your priorities. Nothing changes my priorities, Raven snarled. My people come first. Even before your son? Nova asked, and the casual way she said it made Raven's heart stop. What do you mean? I mean Kai is no longer in the nursery, Nova said. He's been relocated to somewhere more appropriate for his future role. Where is he? Jade's voice was barely human now, more wolf than woman. Safe, Nova repeated. As long as Mother makes the right choice. What choice? The army outside is led by someone you know, Jade, Nova said, turning to her other mother. Someone who's been told that killing Raven will free you from the curse of your bond. Someone who believes he's saving his daughter from a monster. No, Jade whispered, but even as she said it, Raven could see the recognition in her eyes. Darius, Raven said, the name tasting like poison on her tongue. Your father. He's been promised that your death will break the mate bond, Nova continued. That it will restore Jade's humanity and free her from the taint of supernatural corruption. He believes he's acting out of love. He abandoned me, Jade said, but her voice lacked conviction. He wanted nothing to do with me after I was marked. He's been planning this for years, Nova said. Working with the Vampire Council, the human governments, even the werewolf camps. Everything that's happened to you, to both of you, has been orchestrated. That's impossible, Raven said, but even as she spoke, pieces began falling into place. The convenient timing of their meeting, the way events had pushed them together, the forces that had seemed to conspire to make them stronger while simultaneously putting them in more danger. Is it? Nova asked. Think about it, Mother. The werewolf camp where you met, who do you think suggested Jade be sent there? The attack by hunters that drove you to seek refuge with the supernatural quartz, who do you think provided the intelligence about your location? The very circumstances that led to your coronation, who do you think made sure you'd be in the right place at the right time? You're lying, Jade said, but her voice shook. I'm enlightening you, Nova corrected. The Vampire Council has been manipulating events for decades, trying to create the perfect conditions for my resurrection. They needed the original hybrid's consciousness to be born into a body that could handle unlimited power, and they needed that body to be shaped by specific experiences. So they orchestrated our entire lives, Raven said, the implications hitting her like physical blows. They orchestrated your love story, Nova said. Your trauma, your growth, your choices, all of it designed to create the perfect vessel for my return. But you're already here, Jade said. You were born 3 years ago. I was born incomplete, Nova said. I have the memories, the knowledge, but not the power. That requires a willing sacrifice from both of my incarnations, past and present. What kind of sacrifice? The kind that will save Kai, Nova said. The council has him, Mother. They're prepared to use him to complete the ritual whether you cooperate or not. But if you surrender willingly, if you accept the merger with my original self, they'll let him live. And if I don't? Then they'll drain his life force to power the ritual anyway, Nova said. He'll die, you'll be resurrected without your current memories or personality, and the world will burn. Another explosion, this one so close that debris rained down from the ceiling. Raven could hear the sounds of battle in the courtyard now, her subjects fighting for their lives while she stood here learning that everything she'd believed about her existence was a lie. I have to go, she said, moving toward the door. My people need me. Your people are going to die, Nova said. All of them. The army outside isn't just large, it's designed specifically to counter supernatural abilities. They have weapons that can kill vampires, werewolves, and hybrids. They have magic users who can neutralize your power. The only way to save them is to give the council what they want. And become a monster in the process, Raven said. Become a goddess, Nova corrected. Powerful enough to reshape the world, to protect not just the supernatural community but all life on Earth. The humans are destroying the planet, Mother. They're killing the oceans, poisoning the air, driving species to extinction. Someone needs to stop them. Someone like you. Someone like us, Nova said. If you accept the merger, I don't disappear. We become something new, your compassion tempered by my strength, your morality guided by my wisdom. We become what this world needs. A tyrant, Jade said. A savior, Nova replied. But the choice has to be made now. Every second you delay, more of your subjects die. Every moment you hesitate, Kai gets closer to his appointment with the council's knives. The sound of splintering would echo through the castle as something massive struck the main doors. Raven could hear familiar voices screaming, Sierra, Elena, others she'd sworn to protect. Her wolf side howled for her to join the battle, to defend her pack. Her vampire side whispered that she should embrace the darkness, use whatever power necessary to destroy her enemies. Show me, she said finally. What? Show me where Kai is, Raven said. Let me see that he's alive, that he's safe. If you want me to consider this bargain, I need proof. Nova smiled, and for a moment, she looked like the teenager she was supposed to be. Of course. She waved her hand, and the air in front of them shimmered like heat waves. An image formed, Kai, barely 3 days old, lying in what looked like a ritual circle. He was surrounded by hooded figures, their faces hidden but their intent clear. Ancient symbols had been carved into the stone around him, and they pulsed with a sickly green light. The council's sanctum, Nova said. Hidden beneath the old vampire courts in Romania. They've been preparing this ritual for centuries, waiting for the right moment. He's so small, Jade whispered, her hand reaching toward the image as if she could touch their son. He's perfect, Nova said. A hybrid conceived in love, born under the blood moon, carrying the genetic legacy of both incarnations. His life force will be more than sufficient to power the resurrection if you refuse to cooperate. And if I agree? Then he lives, Nova said. He grows up in a world where monsters don't have to hide, where the strong protect the weak instead of preying on them. He becomes the bridge between species that he was meant to be. Under your rule, Raven said. Under our rule, Nova corrected. With your heart and my strength, we could create a paradise. No more wars between supernatural factions, no more human persecution, no more hiding in the shadows. Just peace. Peace through conquest, Jade said. Peace through strength, Nova replied. The only kind that lasts. The image flickered and disappeared, leaving them staring at empty air. In the distance, they could hear the battle growing closer, the sounds of their subjects fighting and dying for a kingdom that might not survive the day. I need to think, Raven said. There's no time, Nova said. The ritual begins at sunset. If you're not there by then, they'll proceed without you. And if I am there? Then you have a choice, Nova said. Accept the merger willingly and retain some influence over our combined consciousness, or fight it and risk losing everything that makes you who you are. Some choice, Jade muttered. It's more than anyone else gets, Nova said. The council doesn't usually offer options. A new sound reached them, a roar that was part wolf, part man, part something else entirely. It was a sound of rage and grief and determination that made the ancient stones of the castle vibrate. Darius, Jade whispered, her face going pale. He's here, Nova confirmed. Leading the assault personally. He's been promised that your freedom lies on the other side of Raven's death. He's wrong, Jade said. Is he? Nova asked. Without the bond, you'd be free to live a normal life. No supernatural politics, no constant danger, no targets on your back. Just a normal werewolf in a normal pack. Without Raven, I'd be nothing, Jade said fiercely. You'd be free, Nova insisted. Free to choose your own path instead of being bound by cosmic forces and ancient prophecies. I chose my path, Jade said. I chose her. You chose what you were programmed to choose, Nova said. The mate bond, the shared trauma, the circumstances that threw you together, none of it was natural. All of it was designed to create this moment. That doesn't make it less real, Raven said quietly. Doesn't it? Nova asked. How can you be sure what's real and what's manipulation when your entire existence has been orchestrated? It was a question that cut to the heart of everything Raven had been struggling with since Elena's revelations. How much of her life had been her own choice, and how much had been the result of forces beyond her control? Another roar echoed through the castle, closer this time. Whoever Darius was, he was cutting through their defenses like they were made of paper. I have to go, Raven said. My people need me. Your people are going to die, Nova said. All of them. Unless you make the right choice. The right choice for whom? For everyone, Nova said. For the supernatural community, for the humans, for the planet itself. The current path leads to extinction. I've seen it in the memories of the original hybrid. This is our chance to change course. By becoming a dictator. By becoming a protector, Nova corrected. Someone strong enough to enforce peace, wise enough to guide evolution, compassionate enough to preserve what's worth preserving. And ruthless enough to destroy what isn't. If necessary, Nova said. But with your influence, that ruthlessness would be tempered by mercy. Together, we could be what this world needs, a benevolent goddess instead of a vengeful demon. And if I refuse? Then you'll watch everyone you love die, Nova said. Your subjects, your sister, your son, all of them will be sacrificed to resurrect a version of me that cares nothing for mercy or compassion. A version that will rule through fear instead of love. The choice was impossible, surrender her free will to save her family, or maintain her humanity and watch them all die. It was exactly the kind of no-win scenario that the Council of Shadows would design, the kind of trap that left no room for heroics or clever solutions. "There has to be another way," Jade said. "There is," a new voice said from the doorway. They turned to find Elena standing there, her usual composed demeanor replaced by something that looked like desperate hope. "Elena," Raven said. "I thought I told you to." "I've been working on a solution," Elena interrupted. "A way to save Kai without surrendering to the Council." "What kind of solution?" "A counter-ritual," Elena said. "Something that will disrupt their ceremony and free your son. But it requires precise timing and enormous power." "What kind of power?" "The kind that comes from accepting your true nature," Elena said. "Not the merger with the original hybrid, but the full integration of your vampire and werewolf sides. You've been keeping them separate, using them as needed, but you've never truly united them." "Because doing so would drive me insane," Raven said. "The conflicting natures would tear me apart." "They would have," Elena said. 3 years ago, when you were still struggling to understand what you were. But you're stronger now, more balanced. The bond with Jade has stabilized your dual nature, and the experiences of ruling have taught you to balance competing impulses." "You're suggesting I risk everything on a theory?" "I'm suggesting you risk everything on hope," Elena said. "The Council's ritual is designed to work with a willing sacrifice or a forced merger. But if you integrate your natures before they can complete the ceremony, you'll be powerful enough to disrupt it from within." "And if it doesn't work?" "Then we all die," Elena said simply. "But at least we'll die as ourselves, not as pawns in someone else's game." "Elena," Nova said, her voice carrying a warning that made the air itself seem to recoil. "You're interfering with forces beyond your understanding." "I'm trying to save a family," Elena said. "Something you seem to have forgotten how to do." "I'm trying to save the world," Nova countered. "The family is just collateral damage." "The family is the world," Jade said fiercely. "Everything else is just politics." "Politics that will determine whether supernatural beings have a future," Nova said. "Whether humans learn to coexist with us or continue trying to exterminate us." "Enough," Raven said, her voice carrying the authority of both vampire and werewolf alpha. "I've heard enough arguments, enough manipulations, enough fear-mongering. It's time to make a choice." "And what choice is that?" Nova asked. "The choice to fight," Raven said. "Not as the Council's puppet, not as your vessel, but as myself. As a mother protecting her child, as a queen defending her subjects, as a woman who refuses to let anyone else write her story." "You'll fail," Nova said. "Maybe," Raven said. "But at least I'll fail as myself." She turned to Elena. "How long do we have?" "The ritual begins at sunset," Elena said. "But the counter-ritual needs to be started now if it's going to work. The integration process will take hours, and you'll be vulnerable during the transition." "Vulnerable how?" "You'll be unconscious," Elena said. "Your consciousness will be deep inside your own mind, fighting to merge your dual natures. If you're interrupted or attacked during the process, you could be trapped there forever." "So someone needs to protect me while I'm under?" "Someone needs to protect the castle," Elena said. "The integration will create a massive release of supernatural energy. Every enemy within 100 miles will be drawn here like moths to a flame." "Including Darius," Jade said. "Especially Darius," Elena agreed. "He'll sense the power shift and assume you're beginning the merger with the original hybrid. He'll do everything in his power to stop it." "Then we'd better make sure he can't," Raven said. "How do we begin?" "Are you sure about this?" Jade asked. "Elena's right, you'll be completely vulnerable. If something goes wrong." "If something goes wrong, we'll deal with it," Raven said. "But I'm not surrendering to the Council, and I'm not letting them sacrifice our son. This is our best chance to save everyone." "Our only chance," Elena corrected. "The Council's ritual is designed to be unstoppable once it begins. This is the only window we'll have to disrupt it." "Then let's not waste it," Raven said. Elena nodded and began pulling items from her bag, candles, crystals, vials of liquid that seemed to glow with their own inner light. I need to set up the ritual circle. It'll take a few minutes. I'll buy you the time, Jade said, moving toward the window. Darius is almost here. Jade, wait. He's my father, Jade said. Maybe I can reason with him, make him understand what he's really doing. And if you can't? Then I'll stop him, Jade said. By whatever means necessary. She was gone before Raven could protest, leaping from the window with inhuman grace. Raven watched her land in the courtyard below, then disappear into the chaos of battle. She's brave, Nova said, her voice carrying something that might have been admiration. She's desperate, Raven corrected. We all are. Desperation makes people do stupid things, Nova warned. Like trusting witches with experimental rituals. And desperation makes people do necessary things, Raven replied. Like refusing to surrender to tyrants. I'm not a tyrant, Nova said. I'm a survivor. And I'm trying to help you survive too. By erasing who I am. By making you stronger, Nova said. By giving you the power to protect everyone you care about. The power to control them, you mean? The power to guide them, Nova corrected. To help them evolve, to prevent them from destroying themselves. That's not my choice to make. It is if you're the only one strong enough to make it, Nova said. Power doesn't ask permission, it simply is. The question is whether you'll use it wisely or let others use it for you. Ready, Elena announced, straightening from the ritual circle she'd carved into the stone floor. But once we begin, there's no going back. Are you sure about this? No, Raven said honestly. But I'm sure about what happens if we don't try. She stepped into the circle, feeling the energy humming beneath her feet. The symbols Elena had carved were already glowing, responding to her presence. Remember, Elena said. The integration will feel like dying. Your vampire and werewolf sides will fight each other, and you'll be caught in the middle. You have to let them battle, then find a way to unite them without losing yourself in the process. Any advice on how to do that? Remember who you are, Elena said. Not what you are, but who you are. The person you've chosen to be despite all the forces trying to shape you. And if I forget? Then Nova gets her wish, Elena said. And we all pay the price. No pressure, Raven muttered. None at all, Elena replied with a weak smile. Ready? Ready. Elena began the incantation, her voice rising and falling in patterns that seemed to bypass the ears and resonate directly in the bones. The symbols around Raven began to glow brighter, and she felt the familiar tingle of supernatural energy building. Wait, Nova said, stepping forward. There's something you need to know. Nova, not now. The werewolf camp, Nova said quickly. The marking, the way you and Jade were brought together, it wasn't just manipulation. It was a breeding program. What? Marcus wasn't just working for the Vampire Council, Nova said. He was working for them. The entire camp was designed to create hybrid offspring through forced matings. Jade wasn't marked by Marcus because he wanted her, she was marked because the council needed her to be traumatized, vulnerable, desperate for a true mate. You're lying, Raven said, but even as she spoke, she could see the truth in Nova's eyes. Darius was part of it, Nova continued. He didn't abandon Jade after she was marked, he delivered her to Marcus on the council's orders. His own daughter, handed over to be used as breeding stock. That's impossible, Raven said, but the pieces were falling into place. The timing, the circumstances, the way everything had seemed designed to push her and Jade together. The council has been planning this for generations, Nova said. They've been manipulating bloodlines, orchestrating meetings, creating the perfect conditions for hybrid offspring. You weren't just chosen to be my vessel, you were bred for it. Nova, stop, Elena said, her voice sharp with warning. She deserves to know the truth, Nova said. About what she is, about what her children are, about what's been done to her family. The truth is that none of that matters, Elena said. What matters is what you choose to do now. The truth is that everything I've ever believed about myself is a lie, Raven said, feeling the weight of Nova's revelations crushing down on her. The truth is that you're more than the sum of your manipulations, Elena said. You're a person who chose love over power, who chose protection over domination, who chose to build rather than destroy. That's not programming, that's character. Is it? Raven asked. How can I be sure? Because you're asking the question, Elena said. Because you're fighting against your nature instead of embracing it. Because you're still choosing to risk everything to save your son instead of accepting the easy path Nova's offering. The easy path that leads to godhood, Nova said. The difficult path that leads to death. The path that leads to freedom, Elena corrected. The freedom to choose who you want to be. I don't know who I want to be anymore, Raven admitted. Then figure it out, Elena said. In the ritual, when your natures are warring, when everything you think you know about yourself is being torn apart, that's when you'll discover who you really are. And if I don't like what I find? Then you change it, Elena said. That's what free will means, the power to become who you choose to be, regardless of who you were made to be. The ritual's energy is building, Nova said. If you're going to do this, it has to be now. And if I don't? Then in a few hours, your son dies and I'm reborn without your influence, Nova said. And trust me, you don't want to see what I become without your compassion to temper my power. Last chance, Elena said. Are you sure about this? No, Raven said. But I'm sure about what I'm fighting for. She closed her eyes and let the energy of the ritual circle wash over her. As the world faded around her, she heard Nova's voice one last time. Remember, Mother, the strong survive, and the weak serve. Don't let your compassion make you weak. Then everything went dark, and Raven found herself standing in a place that existed between consciousness and dream, between memory and possibility. Around her, shadows moved and whispered, and she realized she was about to fight the most important battle of her life, not against external enemies, but against the warring natures within herself. The integration had begun, and there was no going back. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and check out the next video for more awesome insights. See you there.